Something's cooking again in Pittsburgh, and it's not just the return to the South Side. It's the wide receiver room getting another shakeup. Gabe Davis is back. Yep, that Gabe Davis, and this isn't just a casual stop-in or a friendly hello. This is business. His previous visit back in May didn't end well. No contract, no spot, and definitely no headlines. But something tells me this time's different. This time feels serious. Davis is back in the building. And you better believe Omar Khan and the Steelers front office aren't just doing this for fun. Now let's set the stage here. The team just returned to the UPMC Rooney Sports Complex. No more dorm rooms. No more open training camp vibes. No more fans lining up with signs and cheers. This is where the real evaluation begins. Every rep counts. Every drill has weight. And with all that intensity rising, the Steelers are clearly still unsettled with the wide receiver depth behind DK Metcalf. Yeah, you heard me right, DK Metcalf. That blockbuster move has already changed the entire dynamic of the receiving core. Shipping out George Pickens and bringing in Metcalf was a massive statement. But even that kind of headline-grabbing trade doesn't patch every hole. One elite wideout won't carry the entire room. This isn't a one-man show. And that's exactly why Davis coming back in for a second look is worth paying attention to. Now let's talk about the room as it stands. Calvin Austin, a guy who's expected to take a huge leap this season, hasn't been seen in pads in about a month. He's nursing an abdominal tear, and those injuries are no joke. He was back on the field recently, doing some side work, running individual drills, but he admitted afterward he's got no idea when he'll actually be cleared for full football activity. That doesn't exactly scream confidence. You can't blame the guy. He's young, talented, and desperate to make the most of this year. But when you've got uncertainty tied to one of your top depth receivers, you start looking for insurance. And not just warm bodies. Real options. Because let's be honest, outside of Metcalf, every other receiver on a roster right now has a question mark attached. Roman Wilson is exciting, electric even. The fan base is buzzing about him after some flashy plays in the preseason. But he's raw. He's still finding his place in the offense. And expecting him to step in as the number 2 or be your emergency replacement for a guy like Metcalf, that's a huge leap. You don't throw a rookie into that role and sleep easy at night. Robert Woods? 33 years old, and man, it shows. No disrespect to a guy who's had a solid career, but when you're lining up in the fourth quarter of a preseason game, that's not a good sign. That's not where your starters or even your serious backups should be. That's usually where you showcase guys hoping to catch on elsewhere, guys on the bubble, guys who need film. And that's exactly what that looked like. Scotty Miller? Love his hustle. Love the safety valve aspect of his game. The quarterbacks, especially Mason Rudolph, seem to trust him underneath. But let's be real, he's not stretching the field. He's not winning contested balls. Every time he makes a catch, he's going down immediately. That's not game-breaking talent, that's depth. Ben Skowronek is a different type of asset. Strong blocker, physical presence, does the dirty work that doesn't show up on stat sheets. But even he's been banged up. After that joint practice with Tampa Bay, he didn't suit up for the preseason game. He's moving fine now, walking around, taking part in drills, and when asked, he said he's good to go. But like everyone else in that room, not named Metcalf, there's a cloud of what if hanging over him. And that brings us back to Gabe Davis. 26 years old. NFL proven. And oh yeah, a guy who absolutely torched the Steelers when he was in Buffalo. Go back and check the tape if you forgot. He's not just a deep threat. He's got that dog in him. But he's also coming off a brutal injury, a torn meniscus and PCL in Week 17 last year. That was the end of his 2023 season, and honestly, it might have been the end of his time in Jacksonville before it ever really began. The Jaguars took a chance, signed him to a 3-year, $39 million deal, and by Week 10, his knee gave out. He said himself, he felt the pop, tried to walk off, and that was it. Jaguars were done with him. Over $20 million in dead cap later, he's now back on the market. But the Steelers don't make this kind of second invite without doing their homework. You can bet Davis and his team shared updated medical info, new scans, clearance from his own doctors. This isn't a let's take a look and see kind of situation. If he's in Pittsburgh again, it's because something checked out. Now, he still has to pass the Steelers' medicals. That's non-negotiable. The staff is going to put him through everything, tests, evaluations, imaging, before they even think about offering him a spot. But if he clears all that, if he looks like a guy who can contribute, that's a big-time weapon added to this offense, even if it's not as a primary starter. Because that's the part some folks might miss. Davis doesn't need to come in and be the number 2. He doesn't need to handle 80% of the snaps. If he can come in and be that backup to Metcalf, that guy who mimics his skill set and keeps the pressure off everyone else, that's a luxury worth having. The Steelers wouldn't be asking him to be a savior. They'd be asking him to be depth insurance with upside. And that's a much safer bet than what Jacksonville tried last year. And again, this all ties back to health. Austin's status is up in the air. Roman Wilson might pop, or he might disappear. Woods looks cooked. Skoronek's nursing an injury. Miller's a slot option, not a perimeter threat. So why not take a shot on a guy who's done it before in this league? Davis, when healthy, is a legit starting caliber receiver. Not a top 5 guy, but good enough to beat single coverage, stretch the field, and punish defenses that sleep on him. And look, I'm not saying this is the move that takes the Steelers from good to great. But when you look at how this roster is constructed, how much they're putting on Metcalf, and how fragile the pieces behind him feel, it just makes too much sense. Even if Davis isn't ready for full action in Week 1, even if they have to ease him in, it's a worthwhile investment. Plus, there's a certain level of pressure now. Internally, you can feel it. The wide receiver room knows the clock is ticking. Guys are pushing through injuries, doing everything they can to stay on the field. There's a reason guys like Skoronek were back at practice yesterday. They see what's happening. They see Davis walking back in that building, and they know what that means. The competition is heating up. No rep is safe. No drill is just routine. And that brings us to the broader conversation about who's actually making this team. 10 wide receivers are currently in the fold. Add Davis to the mix, and it's 11. Cuts are coming, and they're going to be brutal. Fans are already fired up about one name in particular, Rock Taylor. There's a lot of love out there for the undrafted rookie. Big body, tough hands, flashes in preseason. Some folks think he's got star potential. But let me tell you something that might surprise you. And the truth, as harsh as it sounds, is that Rock hasn't been consistent. Not in Latrobe. Not in the daily grind. Not when it matters most. You can make 1 or 2 plays in a preseason game, and yeah, that's awesome, but teams aren't just making decisions off game highlights. They're looking at every snap, every rep in practice, how you handle meetings, how you respond to coaching, how you recover from mistakes. And in those areas, Taylor just hasn't separated himself. If anything, he's fallen behind. Guys like Brandon Johnson, who no one seems to be talking about, have done more with less attention. Johnson's not flashy. He's not new. He's not exciting. But he's a football player. Reliable. Smart. Knows how to get open. Mason Rudolph hit him for a touchdown the other day, and it wasn't some miracle play. It was route discipline, separation, and timing. That's the kind of stuff coaches love. You think Mike Tomlin's sitting in the film room saying, "Who had the flashiest grab today?" No. He's asking, who got where they were supposed to be when they were supposed to be there and made the play? That's the NFL. And Johnson's doing it. Every single day. It's a tough pill to swallow for fans because everyone wants that storybook moment. Everyone wants their guy to beat the odds and make it big. I respect the emotion, I do. But from a football standpoint, you got to be honest. Taylor hasn't shown enough consistency to earn a spot over guys who are simply better right now. And age plays into it too. Johnson's 27. That might not sound like a long-term investment, but this isn't about building a 5-year plan. This is about fielding the best roster for the upcoming season. Right now. Today. And if that means going with a guy who's been around the league, paid his dues, and is finally putting it all together, so be it. And this is where Gabe Davis becomes even more interesting. Because you can't tell me Davis walks into that building without causing some serious internal conversation. If he looks healthy, not 100%, but healthy enough to contribute, then everything shifts. Suddenly, guys like Woods, Skoronek, and yes, even Taylor are fighting not for a role, but for their jobs. Because Davis isn't coming in to compete for the 6th receiver spot. He's coming in to make the 53. And if he earns that, someone's out. That's just how it works. I've said it before and I'll say it again. The wide receiver position isn't just about raw talent. It's about fit, role, special teams contribution, blocking ability, chemistry with quarterbacks, understanding the offense. You could be the most physically gifted guy in the room, but if you can't execute the playbook, if you can't handle your assignments, you're not going to play. Davis, if healthy, brings all of that. Experience, range, the ability to win outside the numbers. And more importantly, he brings insurance. If Metcalf tweaks something, if he misses a game or two, Davis is the kind of guy who can slide right in and hold it down. That's value you can't teach. And I'm going to be honest with you. I think the Steelers know they're not done building this offense. They've made aggressive moves, starting with the Metcalf deal, but they've still got holes. Depth is thin, and while the top-end talent is exciting, the drop-off from 1 to 4 is steep. That's not a recipe for sustained success. Adding Davis is a way to hedge against that. It's a way to give themselves breathing room. He doesn't need to be a pro bowler. He just needs to be steady, dependable, ready. Now look, Davis still has to prove he's physically right. That knee injury last year was no joke. Torn meniscus and PCL in the final week of the regular season? That's major. Jacksonville gambled big. 3 years, $39 million, and it blew up in their face. By week 10, he was done. Couldn't cut, couldn't accelerate, and he admitted it. He felt the pop, tried to jog off the field, and just couldn't do it. That's not something you bounce back from overnight. But it's been months now. Rehab, rest, medical evaluations. And if he's in Pittsburgh again, that's a sign that progress has been made. You don't bring a guy like Davis in twice without new information. This isn't a courtesy visit. He's here because his people shared updated scans, shared new reports. The Steelers' medical staff will still have to verify everything. And believe me, they will. But there's smoke here. And in the NFL, where smoke usually means fire, you better start paying attention. Because Davis doesn't just make this team better on paper. He changes how the offense operates. Suddenly, you've got a legit outside threat to pair with Metcalf. You've got someone who forces defenses to stay honest. That opens up space underneath. That opens up the run game. It all connects. And maybe most importantly, it changes the way your quarterback sees the field. Whether it's Russell Wilson or Justin Fields or whoever ends up under center this season, having reliable options changes your confidence level. When you drop back and see Davis one-on-one on the outside, you know you can take that shot. You know he's going to fight for the ball. That alone changes how aggressive you can be. I'm not saying Davis is a savior, but I am saying he's a difference maker. If he's right physically, even 80%, he's better than most of the guys fighting for the bottom spots on this depth chart. And he brings something different. Size, strength, NFL route experience. You can't say that about everyone else in the mix. Now, of course, none of this guarantees anything. We're still in the preseason. There's still time for guys to make moves or make mistakes. Another game coming up. More reps to be taken. But the picture is starting to come into focus. The Steelers are serious about this. They're not settling. They're not content with what they've got. They know the margin for error is small this season. 1 or 2 injuries could flip everything. So they're being smart, proactive, and yeah, maybe even a little bit bold. That's what it takes to win. That's what separates the good teams from the ones that are just hoping to get lucky. Pittsburgh isn't hoping. They're planning, calculating. And when you bring in someone like Gabe Davis, even after a setback year, that tells me you're still trying to level up, that you're not finished. And as for the rest of the room, the pressure is on. Every day, every rep, nobody's coasting. Nobody's safe. You think guys don't feel it? They do. That's why Calvin Austin is pushing to get back on the field, even if he's not 100%. That's why Skoranek is back doing drills right after missing a game. That's why guys like Johnson are grinding every second they're out there. Because they know, they see what's happening, and they know that only the best, the truly best, are going to be standing when this thing's done. But before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and hit the like button on this video. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the Pittsburgh Steelers. And don't forget to share your thoughts on the news in the comments below. Whispers are already spreading like wildfire through the NFL world, and fans are barely able to contain their excitement as the shocking news regarding Odell Beckham Jr. has broken. Sources close to the league suggest that the superstar wide receiver has agreed to a move that could reshape the dynamics of the Pittsburgh Steelers offense, aligning him with none other than veteran quarterback Aaron Rodgers. The implications of such a pairing are monumental, considering Rodgers' precise passing style and Beckham's explosive ability to change a game in a single play. Rumors indicate that discussions have been ongoing for several weeks behind closed doors, with league insiders suggesting that both parties see a unique opportunity to elevate their respective careers. If this move becomes official, the Steelers could suddenly become one of the most talked-about teams in the NFL, with fans, analysts, and rival coaches scrambling to predict how this dynamic duo would function on the field. The combination of Rodgers' experience and Beckham's athleticism could redefine the passing game in ways that few thought possible, bringing a level of excitement and unpredictability that NFL audiences have been craving. Even casual viewers are now glued to social media, dissecting potential lineups and imagining the explosive plays that could come from this unexpected union. The timing of Beckham's potential arrival in Pittsburgh has also fueled speculation, as the team appears to be entering a transitional phase in its roster strategy. Reports hint that Steelers management has been quietly working to create a more versatile offensive unit capable of adapting to Rodgers' style, which relies on precision, quick decision-making, and an uncanny ability to read defenses. Observers argue that Beckham's speed, route-running finesse, and capacity to make contested catches perfectly complement the quarterback's strengths, creating a nightmare scenario for defensive coordinators across the league. Rumors suggest that internal meetings between coaching staff and front office executives have centered on how to integrate Beckham without disrupting the chemistry that already exists, particularly with emerging talents who have been developing alongside Rodgers in recent seasons. While some analysts question whether such a high-profile acquisition could backfire, the buzz among fans has been overwhelmingly positive, with social media trending topics and fan forums filled with speculation about potential schemes, target distributions, and highlight reel touchdowns. Insiders insist that while contracts and medical evaluations remain in the background, there's a palpable sense of inevitability in this potential blockbuster deal, which would undoubtedly dominate headlines and alter perceptions of the Steelers' ambitions for the upcoming season. Speculation is rife about the financial dimensions of this deal, as Beckham's reported salary demands and incentives could push the Steelers' payroll into unprecedented territory. According to industry insiders, teams are not just competing on the field, but also navigating complex negotiations off it, balancing luxury tax implications, cap space, and future draft considerations. Some sources indicate that both parties are willing to compromise to make the union feasible, with Beckham possibly accepting performance-based incentives tied to touchdowns, yards, and team victories, while the Steelers structure the contract to maximize roster flexibility. This financial maneuvering has fueled discussions among commentators, who argue that the NFL is entering a phase where strategic acquisitions are not merely about talent, but also about leveraging contracts and cap space to create long-term advantages. The intrigue surrounding Beckham's possible arrival is heightened by the timing of the NFL's free agency cycle, as teams scramble to make bold moves that can immediately shift competitive balance. Even rival teams are reportedly monitoring the situation closely, with scouts attempting to anticipate how Steelers' defensive opponents will need to adjust to accommodate a star receiver in peak form. As the buzz escalates, insiders note that this rumor alone has the potential to overshadow other high-profile transactions, becoming the central talking point of preseason analysis and fan speculation across digital and traditional media outlets, making it a truly seismic event in professional football. Another dimension of the ongoing speculation involves the cultural and marketing impact of Beckham joining forces with Rodgers in Pittsburgh, as both athletes have significant off-field influence. Analysts argue that Beckham's high-profile social media presence, combined with Rodgers' media savvy and leadership persona, could create a perfect storm of publicity for the Steelers franchise. Rumors suggest that team executives are already envisioning branded content, community outreach initiatives, and merchandising campaigns centered around the star duo, which could translate into exponential ticket sales, merchandise revenue, and overall fan engagement. Beyond the financial and strategic angles, observers note that this partnership could reignite fan passion in a city historically passionate about football, reinvigorating stadium attendance and television ratings. Discussions within insider circles also highlight the potential influence on locker room dynamics, as Beckham's arrival may demand delicate management to ensure team cohesion while integrating his charismatic and high-energy personality. As conversations swirl online and pundits weigh in with predictions ranging from record-breaking seasons to dramatic playoff runs, the atmosphere around the Steelers organization is electric, with speculation reaching fever pitch about how this combination might influence future drafting priorities, training approaches, and offensive philosophies, cementing the idea that Beckham and Rodgers together could represent one of the most compelling storylines in NFL history. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Pittsburgh Steelers, make sure to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and give this video a like. We always look forward to hearing your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.